hearts, and we're thanking you, Heavenly Father, for all the blessings you bestowed in our lives. We thank you for this day. We thank you for our families. We thank you for our government. Bless it in a mighty way. Continue to bless the military and veterans, military personnel, veterans that serve us every day. And bless this St. Tammany Parish government and this commission, and help us to make decisions that's in the best interest of all. Amen.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. In our packets, we have the November 10th, 2015 minutes. If you would please review them. Commissioner Davis.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to include Mr. Richard's name as absent in the roll call, and then I'll approve the minutes.
Please note for the record that Commissioner Richard was absent. And we do have a motion as amended to approve. It was seconded by Commissioner Matthews. Any further comments? Hearing none, I would ask for a vote. Motion carries, one abstention. This is a public hearing. The public is encouraged to speak if you wish to add to any of the cases. Entering parish right-of-way, servitudes and easements, we have none. Minor subdivisions, 2015-100-MSP, a 2.17 acre parcel into parcels A and B, Ward 8, District 11. The owner, Deborah Fulton et al., Surveyor, John J. Cummings and Associates Incorporated. Parish Council District Representative, the Honorable Steve Stefanczyk. Staff.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a proposal. The reason why they're having a public hearing is that there's one private drive accessing parcel B to the rear of West Thorner Road. The owner is proposing to create two parcels from one 2.17 acre parcel. And since a private drive will be provided access to only one parcel, said drive is not required to be built to a parish standard pursuant to Section 40-045 minimum standards for a private drive of Subdivision Ordinance 499. Therefore, since the request complies with all code requirements, the staff has no objections to the proposed minor subdivision.
Thank you. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to speak regarding this case? Seeing none, I close it to the public. I bring it to the commission. Commissioner Dowd. Pardon? No. No petitioner, no public comment. Commissioner Dougherty?
Yes, Ron, on the plat that's in our packet, it looks to me like, from the numbers that I'm seeing, and maybe I'm just looking at them wrong, that both parcels are over an acre.
Correct, they are. They are both over an acre.
Okay?
Yes.
And it also looks like the existing driveway comes across the property line into parcel B.
Well, that's the servitude. Yeah, that's a private servitude that goes into the parcel to the south. Yeah, they can do that. They can stop it anywhere they want as long as they physically touch the rear parcel.
Okay, all right. But that's, looking at your comments and looking at the plat, it wasn't quite ringing the right bells for me, so
Okay.
thank you.
All right.
Commissioner Matthews?
Why are we hearing this? Why is there a public hearing since both parcels are in fact over an acre, which is with the stated reason that we're hearing this?
Mr. Matthews, we've had several of these in the past. Anytime a minor subdivision is accessed with a private drive, whether it be 1, 2, 3, or 4, or 5, it requires a public hearing.
Okay, so it's not the fact that the parcels are under an
Right,
acre.
that's
The reason we're hearing this is because they're accessing the parcels with a private drive.
With one parcel with a private drive,
Okay,
yes, sir.
so I just
Yes.
want to make that clear because
Yes.
that's not what's stated.
Right.
Okay.
Commissioner Casabon?
I make a motion to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Casabon to approve, a second by Commissioner Willie. Is there any further comments? Please vote. Motion carries. Petitions request, a request to build on a buildable substandard lot of record located in the town of Mandeville, Square 142A, Lot 54, Ward 4, District 10. The owner, Donald Scott. Parish Council District Representative, the Honorable Maureen O'Brien. Staff?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Pursuant to Section 40-034.01 contiguous lot rule, the subdivision ordinance 499, the Planning Commission is responsible for reviewing requests for building on a buildable substandard lot of record. The applicant is requesting to build on a substandard lot of record in order to construct a single-family residence. In order for the Planning Commission to approve the request for building on a buildable substandard lot of record, the petitioner must provide proof that they do not currently own and has not sold, nor has any predecessor in deed or title sold any contiguous parcels during the period following the initial adoption of the contiguous lot rule ordinance on January 20th, 1994. Based on the facts that the petitioner has satisfied the requisite requirements of proof as referenced to above, and that the applicant will comply with parish building setback requirements relative to a buildable substandard lot of record, the staff has no objections to the proposed request.
Thank you. Is the petitioner here? If you'd please come to the podium, state your name and address.
Donald Scott, 28800 Adele, Lacombe.
And the reason for your request, sir?
I'm sorry.
The reason for your request?
Oh, it's a substandard lot, and they said I had to come get a variance to build.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in favor of this? Is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition? Seeing none at this time, I close it to the public and I bring it to the commission. Commissioner Casabon?
Yes, I see that it was a home site at one time, and it does have a working sewer system. I'll make a motion to approve.
That's correct.
We have a motion by Commissioner Casabon to approve, a second by Commissioner Willie. Commissioner Matthews?
Yeah, the real reason we have to approve this is because of the contiguous lot rule. Not that there was a sewer system on it, but the last time we had one of these, I expressed concern that no proof was provided to us that they didn't own lots adjacent to this. This time, they have provided more than sufficient proof, and I'd like to commend you and the staff for providing that. This, in fact, does meet the contiguous lot rule, and I think we should approve it.
Commissioner Davis?
I was going to say the same point. I appreciate that.
Commissioner Dougherty?
Yes, Mr. Scott, on the slab that's on the rear of the lot, what is your intention on that? Is it gonna be taken out, or?
I think it'll remain and use it as a patio and build the house forward a little bit. On one of the plans, I put the proposed structure and outline where it will go.
Okay, well, looks like, part of the house is actually gonna be over the patio, is that?
Yeah, it's like 2 feet.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
And if I have to, I'll take that section out.
I don't know that it's necessary to do that. I'm
Right.
just curious for my own.
I'll leave that for the
yeah,
contract.
thank you.
Thank you.
Any further questions? We have a motion by Commissioner Casabon to approve, a second by Commissioner Willie. Please vote. Motion carries. Entering the Tammany Trace, we have none. Revocations, closing review, we have
Thank you.
none. Re-subdivision review, we have none. Dormant subdivision review, we have none. Tentative subdivision review. 2015-93-TP, Du Maison, Ward 5, District 6. Developer owner, Stronghold Construction. Engineer, J.V. Burks and Associates, Inc. Parish Council District Representative, the Honorable Richard Tanner. Staff?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a proposed tentative subdivision that consists of 8 lots. Typical lot size is approximately an acre. It is a density district, so some of the lots aren't exactly 1 acre, but they are allowed to construct these lots because of the density zoning that it's in, which is A2. Pursuant to Section 40-036.01 of subdivision ordinance number 499, community sewer and water facilities are required for lots of this size. Please see a more detailed explanation of the requirements from the Department of Engineering, their comments below. With the exception of that aforementioned comment, the developer has complied with all of the red line comments from staff. One informational item, the parish code requires that the land clearing permit be applied for and obtained through the Department of Development prior to the developer receiving a work order in conjunction with the preliminary subdivision review process. Again, the staff recommends approval subject to that issue being resolved, and Department of Engineering has their comments.
The developer is requesting a waiver for the provision of central water and sewer. See attached letter from J.V. Burks dated November 10th, 2015. Section 403601, Central Water Systems of the Subdivision Regulatory Ordinance Number 499 states that whenever the average lot size of a proposed subdivision to be located entirely within A2 suburban district is greater than 2 acres, the Planning Commission at the time of its consideration of the tentative plan for the subject subdivision may waive the requirement for central water. Section 403602, Development Plan for Community Sewage Systems of the Subdivision Regulatory Ordinance 499 states that the use of individual sewer systems in lieu of a community sewer system may be authorized and will be considered under the following circumstances in subdivisions comprised of less than 15 lots with a minimum lot size of 2 acres or greater and a minimum frontage of 125 feet. Since the proposed subdivision does not meet the minimum lot size or frontage requirements for a waiver of central water or sewer, the staff does not recommend approval of the subdivision. Traffic comments, a DOTD driveway permit must be obtained since the proposed development will front on Highway 41.
Thank you. Is the petitioner here? Mr. Burks?
Yes. My name is Sean Burks. I'm representing the petitioner, Stronghold Construction. This is more or less a case of we understand what the parish rules, the regulations are. And the parish regulations clearly state that if you have over 2 acres lots and with this zoning that you can request a waiver for sewer and water, centralized system. From a strictly practical standpoint, engineering standpoint, we decided it would be prudent to just come up before the commission and lay out our case to you and tell you why we think it would be prudent to rethink in this particular case. Highway 41 up in this area, this is north. This is just a little bit short of 6th Ward Elementary School up on Highway 41, if you're not real familiar with it. Some of this land over here is some of the best soil in St. Tammany Parish. You have a nice sandy loam. In fact, what's very unusual about this piece of property as opposed to most properties is there are no wetlands on this piece of property whatsoever. There is a good drainage area. There's a good system. A lot of the people that have been living out over in that area and new homes that have been constructed in that area all do individual sewer treatment plants over there at that system. And a lot of the reasons why the septic tanks haven't worked in the past have been the soils. In this case, this area is a little bit different. What we have proposed is more or less a miniature, very nice subdivision, 10.9 acres, asphalt roads, nice kind of entrance up in the front. It'll be a first-class facility. One of the main reasons why we're requesting a waiver from the sewer and the water happens to be there's no centralized system up in the northeast part of the parish right there, that probably the nearest system might be 10 miles away. So this is kind of out, in fact, the road right below it is Dump Road. Kind of right, so we're kind of out in the middle of an area that's very, very rural. This is a way the developer is trying to market this to the retiree wanting to move from Pearl River going further up north. Is kind of how they're trying to do this. The feasibility of a sewer and water system to pay for it on 8 lots is just not practical. The other thing is this is outside the growth management area. So we do think that this should come into play, but we respectfully request a variance to allow us to do individual system up over here at the site. If y'all have any questions, I'm here to answer.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the public who wishes to speak in favor of granting a variance? Is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition? Seeing none, I close it to the public and I bring it to the commission. Commissioner Casabon?
Yes, Sean, because of this area, I know it is very high. Have y'all done any perk test on this to see which way you would, if you don't plan on putting a central water and sewerage, how are you going to handle that?
Right. The intent is to go ahead and do individual sewer treatment systems and then go ahead and have field beds coming out from there. So
From there?
It would be, instead of having one unit to handle 8 houses, you would have 8 houses, 8
Oh,
units.
I
Right.
know, but I'm just thinking that because of the soil in that particular area that, and we've done this in some of the rural areas, that it ends up, the homeowner ends up with like their own little bed. It doesn't go anywhere, and it
That's-
stinks, and that's kind of the problem that
The perk-
putting in this many, 8 of them within like 10 acres, not even 11 acres, that it's got to go somewhere, and that is a high area. That I perk test to see which way it would run, but
The soils from the soil map, I finished going out to the site,
Mm-hmm.
appear to be pretty good sandy loam. We have not done a perk test out over there, but that would definitely have to be something that would be done on the back end. But
I would be interested to see, because with staff not really happy about this and not approving it, it would be hard for me to, until I had more information about how you would handle that before I could
sure.
see fit to.
And look, Frank, I understand, we're asking for something outside of the
Right,
normal
right.
purview. And one of the things from a strictly financial standpoint, it's a way to have a nicer development,
Well, if you-
without much practical difference.
I
between it.
understand that, but if we were looking at some larger lots that would be able, to me, to handle more, this is pretty close to your neighbors, with these size lots that, if everyone has, we have 8 of them there, it's no way, and it is smell. I mean, even, on this end of the parish, the people that do the filter beds and stuff, I don't care
Right.
what you say, it still has a smell to it. It says it doesn't, but it does. And sometimes it doesn't go anywhere, and it's a mess. But I'd be interested in knowing about the perk test, which way, what's happening and that sort of thing before I could
That's fair.
consent to it.
Commissioner Dougherty?
Yes, Sean, I take it that these are gonna be open ditches,
Yes.
and you're going to have a field line off the wastewater plant into the ditch.
We were actually, from a design standpoint, we were gonna be doing the sewer in the rear to discharge a separate ditch, and then the rainwater would be up in the front. So you'd have a separate ditch going, we don't want the discharge from the sewer going into the retention pond.
Good.
So
'Cause
the
that was one
intent
of my
was
main
to have
concerns,
the,
'cause you'd have a big
right,
sewer pond there.
that's right.
So where does it go if you're gonna discharge to the rear?
It would discharge out to, it would go from the lots, and it would go out to the Highway 41 ditch from that point out.
I'm just not real comfortable with not having, central water and sewer. close to where I live there in Lake Village, there was a house built and has a rock reed filter. Seems to work quite well, and there's no odor off of it, like Ms. Casabon was indicating on some of the, I forgot now what they call it, but anyway, there's no odor off of it, and apparently does a very good job
Okay.
in that area. So, let's see here. No, that was all I had. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Davis.
Yeah, I'm having a problem with this
Sure.
for the size. Not only is the acreage too small, but on the rear 3 lots, you don't have the necessary 125-foot frontage.
On which one of the lots don't we have the frontage?
Well, don't you have in the rear lot lot 6, 5, and 4? They say 90, is that 90 feet, 90 feet?
Right, in cul-de-sacs, you're allowed 90 feet.
Okay, so you got one that's not in there, 88.
But we do have some more frontage on that side, that 19 feet, that adds up to
Right.
that.
But again, how far is the school away from you, you said?
Just guessing, probably about a half-mile north.
And they don't have public water?
No. I mean, they have their own system that they have up over there for the school.
I would rather you take when coming into this proposed subdivision, that you take the 2 1-acre lots, make them a 2-acre lot on both sides, and then leave it as a 3-acre lot in the back. I think it's too small. The EPA is really coming down hard on us in St. Tammany, and I think if we start doing this again on 41, that would open up another precedent about letting everybody else do the same thing. That's only my concern.
Commissioner Matthews.
One quick thing to staff. The letter that you say is attached, I didn't see it attached on mine.
Yeah, it didn't get attached into the.
Can you tell me, what does it really say, other than they want a waiver?
That's what it
That's
said.
it.
What it
is
says?
they requested a waiver for the water and sewer.
That's it.
Okay. It looks to me like we're trying to put an 8-lot subdivision in a place that maybe shouldn't have any subdivision. We are skimping on the frontage, we're skimping on the lot size. We're trying to force a size 12-foot into a size 9 shoe, and it's just not going to work, I don't think. The 8 separate sewer systems is going to be a problem. Maybe not all 8 of them, but at least one of them is going to be a problem, and the people living there are going to have hell to pay for it. I just think this is a bad, bad idea.
Any further comments? Any motions?
Move to deny.
Second.
A motion by Commissioner Matthews to deny, a second by Commissioner Davis. Any further comment? Please note that a yes vote would support a motion to deny. Please vote. Motion to deny is passed. Preliminary subdivision review, we have none. Final subdivision review, 2015.
Before we go on, I did have a question on this, on the restrictive covenants. Item 7 says no lot shall be further subdivided unless otherwise approved by St. Tammany Parish government. Once we approve a subdivision that has a certain amount of lots at a certain size, can we even consider
Yeah, that's a standard restrictive covenant that's put in all, and zoning can change and lot sizes can change, so that's why that covenant's put in there, just as a safeguard.
I missed the last part, Ron.
I'm saying zoning could change. I mean, they may come back at a later date and try to get it rezoned to A3 or A4, which would make smaller lots. So it's a safeguard. The restriction's there just to make sure that if there's any re-subdivision in the future of those lots, if they have to comply with the zoning, of course, then the government has to approve it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Final subdivision review, 2015-94-FP, Berkshire, Ward 8, District 9, developer owner, SJL Berkshire LLC, engineer J.V. Burks and Associates, Inc., Parish Council District Representative, the Honorable Gene Belisario. Staff?
Periodic inspections have been made by this office during construction, and the final inspection was made on November 23rd, 2015. The inspection disclosed that the base course 2 inches of asphalt has been constructed. The developer is requesting that the final course 2 inches be delayed until the majority of the subdivision has been built out. This has been allowed in other subdivisions in the past with successful results. The roadside ditches are functioning, and the detention pond has been constructed. The following minor uncompleted items existed at the time of final inspection and will be completed before final plats are signed. Since the entire subdivision was constructed, not in phases, the developer is required to construct a gazebo, health training center, and walking, jogging path at this time. Item B, remove sidewalks from the typical roadway cross-section. Item C, lot number 60 needs to have a 10-by-10 sign servitude to install the subdivision name sign. Item D, show detail how the drainage enters the detention pond at the south end of the detention pond. E, show as-built elevations of the drainage ditch on the south side of the subdivision. F, show the location of the outlet control structure on the drainage plan. G, the following note is needed on the plat. Note asphalt binder course, course number 1 installed, wearing course, course number 2 to be installed at a later date. The water and sewer items H and I have been addressed. Traffic comments, J. The as-built signage plan does not contain any of the signage. Revise and resubmit showing all the existing subdivision signage. K. There's a stop sign missing at Oakley Boulevard at the intersection of Oakley Boulevard and Berkshire Drive. L. The typical sign details should be modified to show a horizontal distance 2 feet from the edge of the pavement to the edge of the sign. Reference the MUTCD, page 38, figure A, or 2A-2-C, roadside sign in a business, commercial, or residential area. 3, should the Planning Commission approve the request for final approval, performance obligation in the amount of 4,128.59 linear feet times 1/4 times $40 per foot equal to $41,300 will be required for a period of 6 months. The staff recommends approval of the final subdivision request, subject to the developer complying with all comments and no plats to be signed until all items are satisfactorily completed. No warranty obligation should be established at this time. The warranty obligation will be established and commence upon completion of the asphalt roadway. Mandatory developmental fees are required as follows. Road impact fees, $98,007. Drainage impact fee, $101,000, $374. Fees are due before the plats can be signed. Department of Planning has the following comments.
Comment 1, the developer has depicted green space and amenities within the development pursuant to parish code requirements and has not yet submitted a recreational development plan as was required as part of the preliminary approval. Therefore, the developer needs to submit said plan to the staff in document form inclusive of the amenities that are being provided, a landscape plan if applicable, a time schedule for development of the amenities, and the entity or entities whom will be responsible and for the liability and maintenance of those green space areas and developed areas. Comment number 2, the developer needs to depict on the plat either by notation and the restricted covenants as to the kind of green space that is being provided, no cut, limited cut, etc. The staff recommends approval subject to complying with the comments.
Thank you. Mr. Marone.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Paul Marone on behalf of the developer. To run through some of the staff comments, I'll address some of the higher points, but as a general statement, each and every one of the comments that have been made have been addressed. All of the work is completed. All of the plat revisions have been made and have been submitted to staff. The final plat revisions themselves were submitted I believe, earlier today, so in fairness to staff, they have not had a chance to review that. The work has been completed for some time. For clarity purposes, item 2A, regarding the amenities within the subdivision, we have submitted a detailed recreational plan that provides for the construction of these amenities. We are going to construct them all simultaneously. We are going to construct them at the very early stages of the development. In the plan that has been submitted to staff, we're proposing that they all be constructed and in place prior to the 5th home being issued a certificate of occupancy. The reason for waiting until 5 homes are there and occupied is really twofold. One, we want to make sure that there's somebody there that can enjoy these items, but more importantly than that, we want to make sure that there's somebody there that can watch over these items. History has told us that when some of these amenities go in, and if there are no residents there, they end up being susceptible to vandalism and things of that nature. So we believe that if we at least have a few families there, that at that point in time, there'll be enough for somebody to watch over it to make sure that it's adequately protected. Items B through G are all plat revisions. Those plats were revised as staff suggested by Mr. Burks, who's here. I have a copy of those, and they were submitted to the engineering staff today. Items H and I were satisfied, as Mr. Watson said. The traffic comments, the stop sign is in place. The revisions to the plat, the as-built signage plan, as well as the typical sign detail have been amended in accordance with the staff comments. So all of those items are now completed. In regard to Mr. Keller's comments on the Department of Planning, the Recreational Development Plan, which I alluded to a moment ago, was submitted last week to Mr. Keller, who approved it. But he may not recall that, but I submitted it to him last week, and he loved it. So I will, but in the event that we need to send that back over, I'm happy to do it. But we did send an email that was acknowledged and that was passed on to engineering with regards to that. And finally, the second comment on the no cut, the revised plat shows the green space as limited cut in accordance with the approval. So with regards to the technical aspects, really in two categories, I would say the actual physical construction, all of which really was done other than the placement of the stop sign, which is in place. The plat revisions are all done as well. In addition, you may recall that last week at zoning, there were a number of other issues that were raised by some of the residents in Oakley Place. Since that time, my client and Councilman Belisario have had an opportunity to meet with and discuss some of those issues with some of the residents there. There was a meeting that took place last night that, in my view, looking at the correspondence that came out of that meeting, was very positive and very productive. It is our belief that we have resolved most, if not all, of those issues. Mind you, many of these issues, almost all of these issues, in fact, don't really bear on final subdivision approval. However, they are important. We wanted to try to address those issues, and I believe that we have. So what I would like to do is I would like to read a number of bullet items that my client has agreed to into the record for the purposes of clarity, so that that the residents out there can be assured of our commitment, so that you can be aware of our commitment, and in the event that you want to make it part of any approval that you may grant, we are certainly open to that and would have no objection, because we intend to comply with each of these. There is a problem at Abney Boulevard, where there is not an adequate turning radius for some trucks to get in and out of this area. My client has agreed to improve that radius by concreting the area so that there is more room, and curbing that area so that the trucks can get in and out more safely and without rutting up the sides of the roadway. My client has also agreed at the time that they do the amenities that I mentioned to you within Berkshire, they will also construct a half-court basketball court in Oakley Place. That is not part of this development. As you may recall from last week, the developer of Oakley Place went bankrupt, and as a result, there are certain items that were left undone. While that is not the obligation of my client, in a show of good faith, they are prepared to put in that basketball court for the residents of Oakley Place. We are committed to putting the sign for Berkshire on the 10-by-10 sign servitude that is identified on Lot 60. We will clean the streets leaving Robert Road, getting into Berkshire. In fact, that will commence as early as Thursday or Friday of this week. We will work toward establishing a universal homeowners association. Oakley at one time, as you may know, was one development. Because of the passage of time, it is now 3 developments. And our hope, and the hope of some of the residents that my client met with, is to bring that back under one universal umbrella, so there is a sharing of resources and a community involvement in what happens out there. So it would be an association of Abney Farms Estates, Oakley Place, and also Berkshire. Ms. Rochelle, who is here tonight and who spoke last week, has some problems with the concrete apron in her driveway. When we are fixing the radius at Abney Boulevard and we will be pouring concrete, we will be evaluating that and we'll be attempting to address her problems on her apron. Finally, to the extent that through the course of the home construction in Berkshire, we or any of our contractors create any damage on any of the roadways that from leaving Robert to entering Berkshire, we are committed to making sure that the responsible party is notified and held liable, and that those problems are remedied and are corrected. Finally, at the time that the home builder is out there, and thus we start having delivery of materials, we are committed to having a superintendent on site daily to, one, be responsive to any concerns that may exist, but also to oversee some of these items that we're talking about, to ensure that, that we're as good a neighbor as we possibly can be to the folks at Oakley. So with that being said, again, I would just reiterate that the technical issues for final have all been addressed without exception. These additional items, while not necessarily typically part of final approval, we did want to make known to you and to the public that we are committed to doing those and intend to follow through with those. So with that being said, we'd respectfully request your approval, and I'll be happy to answer any questions at the appropriate time.
Thank you, Mr. Morone. Is there anyone else in the public who wishes to speak in favor of this? Is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition? Please approach the podium and state your name and address.
My name is Rochelle Villegas. I live at 400 Oakley Boulevard, Pearl River, Louisiana. I'm here today. You guys were here last week. I was here. Basically, as I don't know this gentleman's name, Paul. We did have a meeting last night with Mr. Belisario and a representative from DSLD. Basically, he is correct when he said that they are willing to do something with the entrance, because as I mentioned last week, it's a problem. They're, driving over my driveway to make turns and stuff. So they are going to work with us on that, which is, we appreciate. Because it affects all of us. One of the things that I do want to make sure, though, is that if they're, going to be held liable, obviously for things that are going on, that they also make sure that their trucks use the right way in and the right way out. Those are one-way streets going in and going out. They can only basically they can only hold one vehicle at a time, go in that direction. So if you look, you'll see that they say one way. So I guess what I'm saying is that, my side, and I think the reason I can show you pictures, is that I was taking such a burden is because those oversized trucks were using my side of the roadway right at my corner. They were using it for both the entry and the exit. So I was getting double whammed, if I guess I can call it that, because that's the way they were coming in and leaving, as opposed to using the other side of the roadway. We're hoping that, and I don't know if the engineering or who needs to get involved, basically, I guess, but to make sure that whatever they are gonna construct at those entryways turning is going to be enough radius to make the turn, because that's been the problem. It's been the radius. So ultimately, that's what's causing them to, like I said, drive on my driveway and causing more of a problem. The other thing is something that the gentleman mentioned just a moment ago, which he spoke about the HOA. Toby last night mentioned that they couldn't move forward with any type of HOA or covenants for their subdivision because they were directly affected by the existing covenants that I mentioned last week, which is for Oakley Place. Because whether, regardless of the situation, I mean, we have covenants in place. There were covenants registered with you guys in 2007 for Oakley Place. So at the end of the day, they can't move forward, and that's why I think they want to try to bring us under one umbrella. Now, we're going to meet as Oakley Place to see what we want to do as far as going under the same umbrella with them. We're not so sure that that's actually the best thing. We don't know yet. I mean, we're having legal counsel review our stuff because obviously, we were kind of left in a lurch with all that. So we're going to do that. The other thing is yes, he did say about a half-court basketball deal. That may be great for the guys that are out there and the kids. Not me personally, but I think that part is fine. He did mention about doing the required amenities that are going to be in Berkshire. The only concern that I have with that is that he's preaching the fact about wanting to bring us under the same umbrella as a HOA. But if you're going to wait till you do five homes before you construct all the other amenities, then where does that leave us if we're willing to join your umbrella of an HOA? I hope that makes sense of what I'm saying there. Because why would you wait to construct that if you're trying to bring us on board with you to kind of make a happy median? Because from what I'm understanding as of last night, we would have use of those said things under the covenants and stuff that they were wanting to do. So why would you wait to do 5 homes or whatever you want to do? Because he mentioned something about homes being out there. Well, obviously, if any of you have looked at it, you clearly have to go through Oakley to get to Berkshire, which means there's 28 other existing homes already out there. So anyway, like I said, I don't, they've really stepped up to the game as far as trying to reach out to us and trying to do the right thing, and we gratefully respect that. There were just those few other things as far as that went, and then just to make sure that they are going to take liability for any trucks that are coming through there that are damaging, because they can replace my apron to my driveway, but that still doesn't take away the fact that what happens in 6 months if those same trucks are driving over that same apron, and now we're back in square one again. So I just want to make sure that they are going to actually do what they say, and that was the reason that I came tonight on behalf of the other people that were here last week as well, and the people that we met with last night, just to make sure that we kind of put it out there on the table so you guys also knew that where we stood with it as well. So I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in opposition? Seeing none, Mr. Marone, you have 5 minutes of rebuttal.
Thank you, Mr. Manella. Just a couple of follow-up points. With regards to the one-way in and one-way out, I did talk to Mr. Belisario about that, and we're aware of that issue, and we will do our best to police that. But in addition to that, he suggested, and we have no opposition to doing this, working with your staff maybe to install some better signage, because the signage that's there maybe is not totally clear. So that's something that we would do in an effort to try to resolve that issue, make it a little bit more clear that that is a boulevard with 2 one-ways as opposed to two-way street on both sides. With regards to the improving the radius at Abney, obviously that's something that we are going to be working with our engineer on to make sure that it is sufficient. We certainly don't want to waste anybody's money and putting something in that is not going to be beneficial. But I will tell you that whatever we do, we'll make it much better. There's no question about that. And so we're committed to doing that and doing that properly. With regards to the covenants, again, we are willing to work with them in order to bring all of the groups under the same covenants. That's obviously a private issue that doesn't necessarily concern this body. But to the extent that they decide that they don't want to be under that, they want to stand alone, we have no objection to that. We just are trying to accommodate whatever their wishes are in that regard. So as I hope you will see, my client has, in my opinion, gone above and beyond a final subdivision submittal and what they are willing to do on issues that really do not bear on final. With regards to final, the infrastructure is in, the plats are completed, there's really no work that remains to be done. These are ancillary issues, serious to us, serious to these residents, and we intend to fully follow through with those. But with regards to final, I believe there's ample evidence for us to be able to move forward and garner that approval this evening, and we would ask for your approval. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments and a rebuttal? If so, please come to the podium.
I'm sorry, one quick statement. He mentioned earlier about the area right there at the corner of Abney and Oakley, about putting that curbing and that cement and stuff for the radius and stuff. One of the things that I wanted to mention is that per my email that I received from his representative, and just to include that in here, is that this was all said that it was going to be done prior to any construction taking place out there. And that's what the email says. So I just wanted to put that on record, that before any construction starts out there for these homes, that's something that they agreed to, that they were going to take care of prior. So I just wanted to put that out there. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's correct. We agree to that timing. That's correct.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in the rebuttal? If not, at this time, I close it to the public, bring it to the commission. Commissioner Matthews.
Yeah, Paul, I have a couple of questions that, we're talking about the final course, for the asphalt, will be delayed until the majority of the subdivision has been built out. What exactly does that mean?
Well, this is something that has been done in a number of other subdivisions, and if you rode out there today, to a layman, it would appear that the road is completed. I mean, there is an asphalt road there. And so the reason for requesting this is that ultimately it will allow the road to last much longer. Because that final topping of asphalt will not be subject to the construction vehicles that will be coming in. So the road works absolutely fine now. It looks like a typical roadway. This is just an effort to make sure that it preserves and stays in good shape for a longer period of time.
But when would that take place?
I'm looking to my engineer. When the 2/3 of the homes are complete. Obviously, we will have in place, well, once that's done, we'll have to put in the warranty obligation. So that'll be done, then the warranty obligation will be put in place.
But what about a performance obligation to make sure that that's done?
I believe it's there.
It's 6 months. You're not going to have
Yes,
2/3 of
yes.
these houses built in 6 months. That ain't going to happen.
Well, we've got 6 months under that obligation. If we don't, then we'll put it in when the time is to put it in. And if we have to do it before 2/3 are finished, then we'll be prepared to do that.
Well, that works in opposition to what you just said, that you want to do it when most of it's finished. So my suggestion is we have more than a 6-month performance obligation, and once you put it in, then your performance obligation goes away.
Right. If the commission would consider extending that, then we would certainly welcome that. You know, I guess we would I'll look to Mr. Watson and to my engineer to tell us if 12 months would be unacceptable, but if, certainly, we would welcome that.
We're okay with a 6-month performance obligation. If they think they can get a majority of the subdivision built out and it's not required to extend the performance obligation, then that's fine. It can be released after 6 months, and if that hasn't occurred at that time, then we can extend the performance obligation.
I
For
think
an
we're
additional 6
extend the
months.
performance obligation now. Would you come back to us to extend the performance obligation?
I don't believe so.
Okay. Then I think we ought to extend the performance obligation now to make sure that that it will be put in. 6 months
Whatever you feel
is
comfortable
not going
with,
to do it. So I would suggest it as an amendment to any approval, if we do approve this, that the performance obligation last for a minimum of 12 months. Let's see. I think the notation about the gazebo and health training center and things like that being put off until there were at least 5 houses, I think the lady made a very good point. There's 20-something houses out there right now. 5 more really won't make much difference. I would like to see you all go ahead and put those things in now, because if 5 houses will protect it, the 20 houses that you have to go through to get to it would protect it also.
Well, if
Go ahead,
that's
I'm
if that's the decision of the commission, then we will, you know,
Mr. Marone, I would ask you to comment on that one.
so we would just ask, maybe for clarity, if it is the desire of the commission for us to put that in more quickly, we don't object to that. But if we could, let's just get a time frame of what we're talking about so that we can be clear to make sure that we stay in compliance. If we're talking 90 days, 60 days of the plat being filed,
I would think 90 days would be plenty of time for you to get that done.
that would be, we would have no objection to that.
90 days from the date the plat's filed. And I think right now that takes care of my comments.
Commissioner Dougherty?
Yes, Paul, this kind of goes to Sean as well. Street lighting, I don't recall any street lighting out there, and I don't really recall any street lighting in Oakley Place.
I don't believe there's any in there, but I'm going to look to Mr. Burks to answer that for us.
The electrical is actually being installed the end of this week, and there are plans to have lighting in this phase, not in Berkshire.
Okay, that was one question, and I go along with Bill on his suggestions on that, and I believe that's all I've got at this time.
Commissioner Randolph?
Yes, Paul, all of the bulleted items and the items that we're discussing now, this is the result of your meeting from last night, or after reviewing and evaluating, assessing the whole situation, or combined?
That list came out of a meeting that took place last night between a representative of the developer, Councilman Belisario, Ms. Rochelle, and at least, I believe, 2 other residents in Oakley. So some of those issues had been discussed before with Mr. Belisario, with some of the residents, but the list came together as a result of that meeting last night.
That's it, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to, well, we have another light on. I'd like to make a motion, if you will, to approve
I'll
with the
second.
amendments of extending the performance obligation to a minimum of up to 12 months, as well as the 90-day for the plat.
We have a motion by Commissioner Randolph to
I'll second it.
approve as amended, as noted, second by Commissioner Matthews. Commissioner Dougherty?
Yes, just one other question. As I turned my light off, I realized I did have another question. And it really has to do with Oakley Place on the lots that abut Berkshire. it appears the drainage is going to the front of Oakley Place on the drainage plan that I see. I'm not sure how it gets all the way over to this retention pond. It looks like it's, I don't know if it's north, south, east, or west. Let me look here. I don't see it, but anyway, it's just down from where the lady lives, and I'm not sure what kind of shape that retention pond's in, but that's not y'all's problem either. But the lots that back right up to Berkshire, I just want to be sure that the drainage will continue to flow to the retention pond that was built for Oakley Place. And I see where there's, some 42-inch culverts, I guess those are going in?
Yeah, so I believe that you'd be talking about lots, let's see, really 50 through 59. Those are the ones that actually back up. They're actually, I think, backing up mostly to Abney. But those lots are all designed to drain from the back to the front.
Right.
So that water will come to the roadside ditch where it will be collected, and then it will go through the ditch system and the culvert system, ultimately to that pond, which is in the back corner. So
Yeah, that's in Berkshire.
that's in Berkshire, that's correct.
But I was concerned about the lots that are in Oakley that back up to Lot 1 there in Berkshire. Is that water going to move all the way down to the retention pond, which would be all the way to the left of the drawing that you're looking at? The left lower corner looks like that's possibly 2 retention ponds back there. I'm not real sure what it's supposed to be.
Yeah, I can't comment on the flows in Oakley, but Mr. Burks will have a little more background.
Oakley does drain to this retention pond in the rear too in Berkshire.
Okay, it does go,
Oakley does drain into Berkshire.
okay. And that all is gonna go through, basically come to the, kind of a collector there at, Oakley Place and Berkshire.
There's actually a ditch along the southern boundary of both of those developments.
Okay,
It comes into here and it comes in, goes into the pond. It comes this way.
so that, it's not going to, may even improve the drainage in Oakley to some extent.
Right, the fact that the pond is now constructed will help out.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Commissioner Matthews?
Yeah, I just have kind of a general comment that the staff had listed quite a few exceptions on this, and I understand that today they were provided with revised plats and proof of the exceptions being taken care of. That's really not fair to our staff to have them sit here and recite all of these exceptions and the developers wait till today, sometime during the day, to provide all of the comments that have been fulfilled. It makes them sit there and make a bunch of comments they should have already looked at. I don't know if there's anything, staff, we can do about that, but I just think it's unfair to have, at the 11th hour, for them to provide you with the answers to these questions. Can you all comment on that? I mean, I know it's got to be exasperating for you guys.
Well, it doesn't leave us enough time to go back and thoroughly review the plats and then amend our comments for this meeting, but it doesn't necessarily hurt that they submitted them today. We'll be able to get to them tomorrow, or whenever we're able to get to them, and go through the comments and verify that they have been completed, but it doesn't leave us enough time
Many,
today.
if not most, of the developers will in fact have done what they say they have done. But you don't know that,
Right, we don't.
you know, and so when someone comes up here to the podium, and, I know Paul wouldn't make these statements his reputation would be destroyed if we found out he was making these statements and they weren't true. So I know what he's doing. But there are other people come up here and they say we've taken care of all these things, and you guys going, yeah, I guess so.
Well, and that's why we
we're
leave the
going, well,
comments
I
in the
guess so. So
That's why we leave the comments in the staff analysis report until we do have enough time to verify them. And they may well, and I expect that all the comments that they said they addressed, they have addressed them, but since we haven't been able to verify it, we didn't want to rush through it and try and amend the items that we had already included in the staff report.
So we need to make sure if we are approving it, that we make sure that we say that they're still subject to all of the comments being substantiated.
Correct.
Okay. It just didn't seem fair to you guys and for them to be doing it like that.
Thanks.
Commissioner Richard?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. To that end, we do always approve these motions subject to, and at the end of the day, our staff is going to verify it before plats are issued, and signed. So I have no issues with that. The question I have, and I am for this approval, but I have a quick question for either, probably Sean. Did we ever consider having a construction entrance at another location? I was just looking on the vicinity map. It's difficult for me, and Paul, maybe I should address it to you, but I'm just curious, was that ever considered?
Yes, well, actually, we both have worked on that issue.
Okay.
So, yes, it was considered. We discussed it with Mr. Belisario. We worked on it a little bit, and ultimately, there really was no viable way to make that happen. We had hoped to be able to, but it just wasn't going to be viable.
All right, so when I look at this vicinity map, and again, it's very tiny and small, and I'm not familiar with that area, I guess one of those roads that run on the eastern side of the property just couldn't handle it?
Could no.
Okay.
No.
You answered my question. Thank you.
And just as note, going back to Commissioner Matthews' comments, some time back, we did ask for finals to have them substantially complete for the exact comments made as well to staff. And to that point, the commission did actually postpone finals because it was felt at the time before it comes in front of us, it needs to be verified. Not just, and particularly some of the key items, particularly when you get as far as road paving and construction type items. So I think personally that the developers take a risk in coming in front of this commission because we do have the public's interest, and though we have an excellent staff that does follow up for the final signature of the plats, it's one of, it needs to be substantially completed. The final is the final, and it needs to come in front of this commission very close to that. Else, respectfully, I think the risk of no approval or a postponement is very evident. With that, we do have a motion by Commissioner Randolph and a second by Commissioner Matthews to approve as amended. I would ask for a vote. Motion carries. 2015-96-FP, Grand Oaks Phase 2B, Ward 1, District 1. Developer owner, Trinity Developers, LLC. Engineer Kelly McHugh and Associates Incorporated. Parish Council District Representative, the Honorable Marty Dean. Staff?
Periodic inspections have been made by this office during construction, and final inspection was made on November 23rd, 2015. The inspection disclosed that the base course 2 inches of asphalt has been constructed, and subsequent to our inspection, the developer has informed our department that the final 2 inches of course has also been constructed. The roadside ditches are functioning, the detention pond has been constructed. The following uncompleted items existed at the time of final inspection and will be completed before the final plats are signed. Base test results are needed, asphalt test results are needed, Phase 2B property description is needed on the subdivision plat. Ditch invert elevations are required, are needed at each corner lot. Street name signs are needed. Restrictive covenant number 4 needs to be revised to include private drainage. Remove the levee between the detention ponds on the subdivision plat and as-built paving and drainage plan. The following note is required at the private drainage servitude behind lots 93 through 101. Note, rear and side lot swales for lots 93 through 101 shall be a private servitude for the homeowners to drain the rear yard and adjacent lots to the west. Fences, driveways, or any other structures placed in the private rear and side yard swales shall be done in a manner as to not impede the flow of surface drainage. Show on subdivision plat and as-built drainage plan. Remove the restrictive covenants and dedication from the as-built drawing. The undescribed dotted lines between lots 91 and 92 need to be removed. Need as-built elevations on the detention pond addition in this phase. Need as-built elevations of the drainage swale at the rear of lots 93 through 101. The following note is needed on the plat. Note, asphalt binder course number 1 installed, and also asphalt wearing course number 2 installed. Water and sewer, a negative bacteriological report relative to the construction of the project's water system has not been issued by DHH as required by Section 4070 of the Subdivision Regulatory Ordinance number 499. A letter of acceptance and responsibility for the perpetual maintenance and operation of the water system has not yet been issued by the utility provider as required. Traffic comments. An as-built signage plan must be submitted. Number 3 needs to be removed from the staff report. Number 4, the staff recommends approval of the final subdivision request subject to the developer complying with all comments, and no plats are to be signed until all items are satisfactorily completed. Number 5 needs to be removed from the staff analysis report. And we need to add to the staff analysis report, should the Planning Commission approve the request for final approval, a warranty obligation in the amount of 2,600 linear feet times $22 per foot for a total of $57,200 will be required for a period of 1 year. Yes, that's a warranty obligation. Mandatory developmental fees are required as follows. Road impact fee, $47,388. Drainage impact fee, $49,016. Fees are due before plats can be signed. The Department of Planning has no comments.
Thank you. Mr. Marone.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Paul Marone again on behalf of Trinity Developers, LLC. Following up on the comments from the last case regarding the timing of the submittal of these items, I would tell you that these items were not submitted today. They were submitted last week. So each and every one of these items were addressed. Mr. McHugh's letter with all of the items addressed, including the plats, were delivered to staff on Friday. And all of these items are in place as staff had requested. I'll be happy to answer any additional questions, but all work is complete. All items on the plats have been addressed. So there's nothing further that we're aware of that is outstanding for us to be in full compliance with the staff's request.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in favor? Is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition? Please come to the podium, state your name and address, sir.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name's Tim Pierre. I live at 155 Rayford Oaks. I live in the DSLD subdivision. We're bounded on the south side by 22, north side by Brewster. And my backyard butts up against Grand Oaks new development. I'm not here to completely stand against any progress or development, but the problem we have with Grand Oaks is, because I watched them develop that subdivision, because I can look out my back window and see everything that's going on. They took the fill out of that retention pond and built their properties as it butts up against. I'll butt up against lot 100, 101. Problem is, their property is much higher than ours. That's without a slab and without the fill for the slab and all the improvements that's going to go there. So my concern is, when we get a heavy rain event, there's going to be a problem with drainage. Now, between my property and their property, there is what they call a swale, not good enough. Between Rayford Oaks and the subdivision to the west of us, there is a ditch, a pretty good sized ditch that handles all the rainwater from the subdivision that butts up on the west side to Rayford Oaks. We have a swale. Now, I looked at what their property height is roughly, anywhere from 6 to 14 inches, depending on where you at and close to Brewster Road. Now, I'm from Jefferson Parish. I moved over to St. Tammany Parish because of the flood insurance. Right now, we're at flood zone C. But if my property starts flooding, because when they start improving this property, there's nowhere for the water to run off. Another item is, I can look out my back window right now, and that retention pond is full. I mean, it's not to the brim. Last rain event, it was real close to the top. All the retention ponds were full. There was nowhere for the water to run off at. In the front of the subdivision, our water drains off. We were starting to get muddy water to the front, which means their dirt was coming to the front. Their water was coming to the front. Now, I don't know what the answer is, but if we get a heavy rain event, not only is the water a problem, but the mosquitoes are an issue. The water sits behind my property, and it doesn't drain off. The dirt here is hard. Not like Jefferson Parish, the water drains quickly. Here, it sits there. A green space, which is a house adjacent to me, the water sits there. It doesn't drain toward the front of their subdivision property there where the road is. The swales are in place between their properties, but I don't think the water is draining toward the front. I think if we have a heavy rain event, and I'll try to be brief because I don't want to take up too much time, maybe a Katrina event, maybe something not as bad as that, we're going to have a problem because all the retention ponds were full when the last rain event was that little Pacific storm that we had come through a month or so ago. So all I'm asking is for y'all to look at the drainage situation there. I don't think it's going to handle the water. Right now you got about, in the Provo subdivision, if you look at it, maybe 60 houses are going in, and there's a proposed additional phase to go in. You start putting all that concrete in, all those slabs in, there's nowhere for that. I mean, the water's running now, but you're displacing the water. Where's it going to go, and how quickly is it going to be drained? When that rain event came the last time, that water sat maybe a foot below the rim of the retention pond, and it's still full today. Somebody made a comment to me the other day. My brother-in-law came over. Why is there water in it? All that water in the retention pond? I don't know. But I don't think enough's being done to address that. And we have 15 to 20 homeowners butting up against that property. And I would like to see something more done than what is done right now. I think y'all need to take that in consideration. Thank y'all for hearing me out. I appreciate it. Have a happy holidays.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in opposition? Please come to the podium, state your name and address.
Good evening. My name is James Donovan. I live at 341 Old Place Lane in Rayford Oaks subdivision. I can go along with everything that he just said. I took several pictures during the storm that was in October. That was the weekend of the 25th, and then the following weekend, which was Halloween. Throughout both of those events, I observed high water all the way through Rayford Oaks. There are several French drains that have been built along Rayford Oaks Boulevard where people are backing up to this new development. And there was water gushing out of those French drains into the Rayford Oaks drainage system. You can tell the difference because it's a creamy colored, real opaque runoff that's coming all the way down into the retention pond that we have. I have a lot of pictures here if anybody's interested, where it meets a stream that comes onto the Rayford Oaks property. You can see just a huge color difference from what I call the local runoff and then the high sediment runoff. Those two events that we had back in October, not only were they experiencing high water along the new development over there, but all that water was also going down into a little creek feeding our retention pond. And at the peak, our retention pond was about 2 vertical feet below the slabs of the houses down there. What I've looked at is that they're going to install all these drainage plans that are ultimately, I think, going to flush directly into the existing retention pond on the new development, whereby he noted that the thing is already full. It is. It's going to then flush right out the other side, going into the creek, following the downward drainage coming into Rayford Oaks retention pond, and I think at that point we are going to have a real problem. I live in Phase 3. We bought our house in floodplain C also, and I'm also concerned that that will change. I have a lot of pictures here. I have a fair amount of documentation if anybody wants to have a look. I thank you all for your time very much.
If you would give that to staff, please.
Sure.
Thank you. Any other further comments? Mr. Marone, care to rebut?
Thank you, Mr. Manella. The concerns with Rayford Oaks are not new. Those are concerns that we've been aware of for some time. And to address kind of where it was and where it is today. First of all, I want you to understand that the pond and the drainage infrastructure as constructed out there are in full conformity with the plans that Mr. McHugh put together, that your engineers reviewed and approved. So everything out there is constructed as the engineers have designed and have approved. The pond has water in it, and it will continue to have water in it. It is a wet pond, so it is going to always have water in it. The pond is not full. There is over 4 feet of freeboard or storage over the surface of that pond. So while it may appear to be full, it is not. The adequate storage that was required is there, and it is there in accordance with the plans. Now, with regards to the drainage from this subdivision, as it relates to Rayford. In October, there was a meeting that took place between the engineering staff, some members of Rayford, the developer, and our engineer. I have a memorandum of understanding to Mr. Williams from Mr. Earl Magner on behalf of the parish, and I will just read to you a part of that. The drainage complaints originated from property owners in Rayford Oaks Subdivision Phase 1. All lots in Rayford Oaks Subdivision Phase 1 are designated to drain to flow from the rear to the front. However, the inspection disclosed that many of the lots in Rayford Phase 1 drain partially to the rear, which flow into Grand Oaks. The developer of Grand Oaks has no objections to the rear of those lots draining into the swale on Grand Oaks and accommodating that water and taking it to the retention pond. And that was the fix that the parish engineers determined was appropriate to address the problem. That is the ditch that you see on the plan. That was suggested by staff, and that is the ditch that we have constructed. Certainly, we respect the concerns of the people in Rayford Oaks. We want to make sure that both developments work as they're supposed to, but that ditch that your staff recommended that we have constructed to address this problem was just recently completed and put in place. So the pictures or issues that may have existed before that are really not what's out there on the ground now. And I'll just also read the last statement of this memorandum of understanding from Mr. Magner to Mr. Williams. These revisions, i.e. the ditch, should satisfy the property owners in Rayford Oaks Subdivision Phase 1. Now, that doesn't mean that it did satisfy them. I understand that they still have concerns, and we respect those concerns. But it is the belief of your staff, and it is our belief that our project properly flows, our lots that abut Rayford Oaks flow from the back to the front. that we have now a ditch at the back that is catching the water that unfortunately is flowing from Rayford to Grand Oaks, to address that, to protect our residents, but also to help the Rayford Oak lots get their water out of there. So again, this is not an issue that is new. This is an issue that has been brought to our attention. It has been the subject of a number of discussions and meetings, all of which culminated in the plan that you see before you this evening, the construction that was done by my client, and the memorandum of understanding from the engineering department saying this is what you should do. So we believe that we have complied with our obligations. We believe that our subdivision is constructed in accordance with the plans that you approved and that your staff approved. And we request that you concur with the staff's recommendation of approval of our final submittal. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? Yes, sir.
His definition of a ditch and a swale is two different things. There is no ditch behind my property, I guarantee you. I don't think 3 or 4 inches is a ditch. And I'm guarantee you, once those concrete houses start going in, that water's gonna display somewhere, and it's not gonna go off fast enough. I wouldn't have a problem with a ditch behind my property where the water be carried off, but it's not even a decent swale. It's not a ditch. It was considered to be a swale, and it might be looked at as a swale, but it's not a ditch. And if you look at Brewster Road, and you go south from Brewster, from the properties that are lower, like 80 on up to 101, the ground goes higher. Behind my property, the problem I have is they've built their property higher than ours, 8 to 14 inches. I looked at it. And what happens is, when you build that high, the water's going to run in a direction. If it doesn't go fast enough, it's going to intrude onto our properties. Now, I moved from Jefferson Parish to the North Shore, so I wouldn't have to put up with flooding. And I know from my past experience working in Jefferson Parish government that we would not allow Jefferson Parish one property to encroach on another without proper drainage of their properties. I know for a fact that if their properties are higher, I didn't think they could build that higher than us. Why would they build higher? When you already have a C zone, why would you want to do that? It's not necessary. Now, y'all do what y'all want, but I'm telling you, behind my house, it's not a ditch. I guarantee you. I have some pictures here, and
If you give those to staff, please.
you could look at it, and I invite any one of y'all to come out to my property and look at it. Mr. Marty Dean was out my property. He looked at it, and he concurred that their property was much higher than ours. I just don't see it. I don't see, and that's without a slab on it. It's not without, with everything that goes on the slab. So please look at it again and make sure, because I want to know who's going to be responsible and liable if my property floods. And it won't be good. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else who wishes to rebut?
Thank you. I'll note that the Rayford Oaks subdivision is about 65 acres. Off to the east, the Montgomery Terrace subdivision and the Grand Oaks existing subdivision are about another 60-plus acres, give or take. This area is going to be another 60 to 70 acres. The Rayford Oaks drainage retention pond is between 6 to 7 acres. The existing retention pond on the Grand Oaks new development is about 1 acre. I'd just like to add that for the record. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any last comment? This time I would close it.
I'd like to make a few comments, please.
Is this in rebuttal, sir?
No, in favor. I'm Jay Plew. I'm the developer, Trinity Developers.
Go ahead. We'll let you proceed.
I would just like to say that since the last hard rain, the swale was dug, and also there are deep swales from the rear of the lots in Grand Oaks to the front ditches. Earl Magna, the city engineer, met with me at the site and verified that the lots in Rayford are actually draining from the front to the rear, which is incorrect. They're supposed to be draining from the rear to the front. So we have agreed to accept their water and dig this swale when it's really not our problem. It's their problem to take their own water. We're not obligated to take their water. I can also show you some pictures where there's French drains hooked up to the downspouts that come all the way to the Grand Oaks property and run under their fences, sending their water to Grand Oaks, which is not proper. Like I said, to be a good neighbor, we agreed to put the swale in, and the swales were all dug and put in after this last hard rain, because I go out there every time there's a rain and nose around and see what's going on. But my contention is just the side swales alone on the lots in Grand Oaks will take care of all the water. In addition to that, we put another swale at the rear of the lots. In closing, I just want to say that the biggest issue here is that the lots in Rayford are draining from front to back, which is illegal. I don't know how it got done like that, but that's the way it is. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. This time I will close it to the public and bring it to the commission. Yes, sir.
I'd like to make a rebuttal to that. I had my hand up when you asked last.
Then please proceed. Keep it less than 1 minute, and then I will close it to the public.
My name is John Amy. I live at 230.
Wait, please come to the podium.
My name is John Amy. I live at 230 Mac Lane in Rayford Oaks. Those photographs you see, I took this morning. And if you look at them, the swales that he just referred to, there are dark spots from moisture at the rear, the west end of those swales. The other end are dry. Physics doesn't change. Water runs downhill. They are not draining to the front. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I now close it to the public, and I bring it to the commission. Commissioner Davis.
Paul? Since we're talking about drainage, looking at your drainage map, this west pond, retention pond that you have on the map, and it says this levee to be removed to combine new pond with existing, is that correct?
Correct.
Has that been done?
Yes, that's been done.
Okay. Was that done before this event that happened in October?
Yes.
So what's the problem? I mean, what's the problem? Engineering went out there and researched all this and?
Yeah, we didn't have any comments. They had their approved drainage plan from preliminary, and they've, other than the comments that we've noted, they've followed their approved drainage plan.
Okay, and so, and they were allowed to put fill on the property?
Yes.
Okay.
Commissioner Dougherty, no further question? Commissioner Matthews.
Yep. You have a comment, Paul, that you need to make?
No, that's okay.
Actually, following up on the last item, the final 2-inch course, it says it will be done when the majority of the subdivision has been built out. By majority, you mean 50% plus one?
Well, no, there is some confusion. On this development, all of the asphalt is in.
Okay, so the final course is in?
Is in, yes, sir.
Okay, so we
Yes.
don't have to worry about that?
That's correct.
Or the performance obligation?
That is correct. That's correct.
Well, I'm good.
Any further comments by the commission?
Motion to approve.
Commissioner Matthews motions to approve. Commissioner Lauren.
I'd like to make an amendment. I'd like the motion to read exactly the way the staff has it. Approval of the proposed final subdivision request subject to the developer complying with all comments and no plats be signed until all items are satisfactorily completed. And the reason for that is partially what Mr. Manella and Mr. Matthews said earlier. It's our responsibility to approve the final plat. There's all these exceptions in here. If we approve it, it's not coming back before us again. Okay, I understand that. But what we're presented with tonight is that all of this stuff between the developer and the staff, it has not been completed to the point where you can say it's complete. When we do final, it's supposed to be final. So all that I'm saying is, with my amendment, is that if all has been satisfactorily completed, then you can sign the plats. That protects us from doing our responsibility, that we're not approving something where you say it's done and they say they haven't done their paperwork, okay? That's the whole purpose behind the amendment. So with it, I leave it as an amendment.
So Commissioner Lauren, if you would restate what the amendment would be?
Exactly the way the staff has it written. Recommend approval of the proposed final subdivision request, subject to the developer complying with all comments and no plats be signed until all items are satisfactorily completed.
I accept the amendment.
So you second the amendment, Commissioner Matthews?
I
Are you,
accept the amendment to my motion.
So you need a second.
I second the
If I'm not-
amendment.
fact of the matter is, there's two separate motions. Commissioner Matthews made a motion to approve. Commissioner Lauren made a motion with an amendment in it, and neither one of them were second. So if Commissioner Lauren's motion is seconded, that becomes the primary motion.
I second.
So Commissioner Randolph has seconded Commissioner Lauren's motion. So that is the motion that's currently in front. Commissioner Randolph, do you have a comment? Commissioner Lauren? Commissioner Matthews?
Yeah, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Is Commissioner Lauren's motion to approve or just to add language?
Commissioner Lauren's motion is a motion that has been amended. So it has additional language in it, but that's a motion. Your motion did not have that language, nor was your motion seconded. So Commissioner Lauren basically took the motion and proposed a different motion technically because he added language to it. And then Commissioner Randolph seconded that motion.
Was, Commissioner Lauren, was that your intent? To approve? That's fine.
Thank you for the clarification. So we have a motion by Commissioner Randolph, which does have amended language in it, as stated, second by Commissioner Randolph. Please vote.
Would you repeat that again, please?
Yes. Let me say, Commissioner Matthews made a motion as stated, a motion to approve. Commissioner Lauren made a motion with additional language in it, basically stating item 4 relative to the developer complying with all comments, of which no plat would be signed. That motion was seconded by Commissioner Randolph. Commissioner Matthews' motion did not have a second. Therefore, the only motion in front of this commission is Commissioner Lauren's, and the fact is it's Commissioner Matthews is what he had stated with additional language, but it is a primary motion, which has been seconded. So it's the only motion that's in front of this commission. Just as a point of clarification, had Commissioner Matthews' motion been seconded, then the only way that could have been changed would be Commissioner Lauren would have had to make a motion to amend Mr. Matthews' motion, but Mr. Matthews' motion was never seconded. That's the clarification, I believe. Yeah, please clear the screen. Motion in front of us is Commissioner Lauren's motion to approve, second by Commissioner Randolph. We cleared the motion. We cleared it. Please vote. Yes. Motion carries. Sorry for the confusion. 2015-98-FP, Wadsworth, Ward 4, District 5 and 7. Developer owner, the Asbury Fund and Wadsworth Estates LLC. Surveyor R.W. Krebs LLC. Parish Council District Representative, the Honorable Marty Good and the Honorable Maureen O'Brien. This case was postponed indefinitely at the August 11th, 2015 meeting. The developer now requests that the Commission formally place this case back on the agenda for review and consideration. In order to do this, the Commission must make a motion to return the item to the agenda. The fact that the item has been publicly posted 24 hours prior to this Commission hearing, it does allow us to bring it back, if the Commission so does, to discuss it and to take any action that the Commission wishes to take. But at this time, we would require a motion just from the Commission, no comment from the public, to return it to the agenda. So I bring it to the Commission. Commissioner Richard.
I move to return it to the agenda.
So moved. Second by Commissioner Richardson. Are there any comments by the Commission? Not, I would ask for a vote to return to the agenda. Motion carries. As stated, staff, any further comments?
Periodic inspections have been made by this office during construction, and the final inspection was made on November 23rd, 2015. The inspection disclosed that the asphalt road is constructed, road shoulders need to be constructed, roadside ditches need to be regraded, and sewer and water infrastructure needs to be completed. Since the infrastructure has not been completed, the developer is requesting that a performance obligation be established for a period of 6 months covering the work required. See attached tabulation of items not completed. Should the Planning Commission approve the request for final approval, a performance obligation will be required for the infrastructure to be completed. The staff has reviewed the engineer's calculations and agrees with its content. It's recommended that a performance obligation be established in the amount of $334,990 for a period of 6 months. No warranty obligation is required at this time and will be established upon the completion of the infrastructure. No mandatory developmental fees are required since a public hearing was held prior to January 1st, 2005. Department of Planning has no comments.
Thank you. Is the petitioner here?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Shelby LaSalle. I am the owner's representative, representing Wadsworth LLC and the ASB Fund. As you recall, this, as noted, this case has been, project's been designed back in 2005, and it was originally designed as a PUD, combination of mixed uses, and the infrastructure was substantially complete several years ago when the parish came to the owners and asked them to reconsider the use of the property as opposed to residential, combination of office park and light industrial, with mixed uses of that, list of uses of the light industrial use. We subsequently went forward and revised the infrastructure and have substantially completed it to some degree, and we're subdividing it into 5 major parcels. This is a 160-acre project with 5 basically business and light industrial parcels, and we ask your consideration at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in favor? Is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition? Mr. Hernandez.
Thank you. Carla Hernandez. Yeah, I guess one of the things that I'm curious about in reading the comments that I did in terms of where what still needs to be done is that those of us who use this area, and especially the entrance ramp heading west from 1088 to I-12, can't help but notice that there are fire hydrants that are located adjacent to where the right-of-way is and where presumably a roadway should be there. And I would think that that's one of the roadways that should be included in there, but I don't see the roadway. If it's there, it's underneath all the dirt that's along right there along the fence line. So I'm curious as to why that particular roadway, which would seem to be an important roadway because it fronts right along a number of the proposed lots that were in the phase that I understood was going to be one of the those that were going to be developed in front adjacent to the right-of-way along I-12 entrance. So I'm curious as to why that particular road is not identified as being one that is needed as needed as, you know, to be completed prior to any approval. So I'm a little confused about that, and I guess that's a question about why that particular roadway is not identified, if in fact it's there under all this dirt. So I mean, I can't see it, and I'm curious as to those of us who pass there all the time believe that it's not there. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in opposition or clarification? Mr. LaSalle, would you care to rebut?
Yes, sir. That's, there is a water line, as noted, along the interstate right-of-way. That was requested by the Environmental Services Commission as a source of water supply to the project, and there is no roadway that is planned for that location. That whole water line is in one parcel of property that comes up to the comes under the interstate, up to the boulevard, and then serves the property along the boulevard. So there's no roadway planned or designed in that location. It's a feeder water line that comes from under the interstate paralleling the interstate right away to the boulevard.
Thank you. Mr. Hernandez, wish to rebut?
Well, the fire hydrants run parallel along the fence line. I'm curious as to how one gets access to that if one assumes that the fire hydrants are there, you know, for emergency vehicles. And one would also assume that in order for emergency vehicles to gain access to those fire hydrants, they have to have a roadway to get there. So the plans I had previously seen a year and a half ago showed that there was supposed to be a roadway along that very corridor. So I'm curious as to, obviously I've not seen the latest one apparently, but I'm curious as to what happened to that one, and it looked like it was running right along where the fire hydrants were supposed to be. I'm still confused about that. Thank you.
There was a water line extension that was required for this development to service the subdivision, and when a water line is installed, we're required to make them put fire hydrants in at a 500-foot increment, regardless of whether there's a road there or not. And like they stated earlier, the subdivision is 5 large parcels, and it's going to be serviced through the road at the front of the subdivision, and they've got water along that road. But this just happens to be the route that they wanted to bring the water to service the subdivision. There's no road right now that's planned for it.
So it's a requirement as far as the fire hydrants, but it's basically a water ring that's going in on the perimeter of that particular phase of the subdivision?
That's just the route that they chose. It's their private property. They designated a servitude when they went through with the water line extension project. And
but it wasn't for our requirement on the 500 feet to put a fire hydrant. They would not be noticeable.
Whenever there's a water line extension, we required that they put fire hydrants along with the water line at a 500-foot increment. So that's, it might be a little confusing there that it's not running next to a roadway, but we didn't, they may develop at a later date, and there could be a road along the side of it, there could not be. But to not put the fire hydrants in when you install the water line would be a mistake. To say at some future date, you're going to be required to go back and put fire hydrants in on a water line. So we made them do it up front.
Thank you. Mr. LaSalle, any further comment?
No, sir, just to the parish's credit, obviously that's a large commercial parcel that will obviously have multiple buildings in it and parking areas, and the fire hydrants at that time will be in those parking areas.
Thank you. This time I close it to the public and I bring it back to the commission. Commissioner Matthews.
As our chairman mentioned earlier, when you bring a subdivision in for final and there are a multitude of items left to be addressed, it's pretty hard for us to consider it a final. There are 29 items on this supplemental list here that have not been completed. The roadway doesn't look like it's actually completed. I don't know how you would access several of these parcels because there's no road to them. I just think that what we have here is a project that is not in final form. The staff states that since the infrastructure has not been completed, but we're asked to decide that it is finally completed. I just can't do that. The representative did not even begin to address the 29 plus items as some of the other representatives of the developers have. If we approve this, then why don't we just approve the final at tentative and let them finish whenever they want? This is just a project that is not complete. I don't know why we have it before us, and I would move to disapprove.
I'll second that.
Commissioner Matthews motions to deny.
Yes, deny. I'm sorry.
Second by Commissioner Davis. Commissioner Dougherty.
Yes, sir. Mr. Slough, Mr. Matthews mentioned that I'm looking at the final plat here, and I see where parcels 3, 4, and 5, there's going to be an access road to these parcels, okay? But 1 and 2, I don't see anything. And this is a 5-parcel subdivision, if you want to call it that we're being asked to approve. And there's no access to 2 of your parcels.
There is access to each parcel from the roadway, and the roadway is complete. What is not complete is well, it's complete now, but at the time they did the inspection, was a sewer line to 2 of the parcels and a water service line to 2 of the parcels. That is subsequently been complete. One of the other items was sewer pumps that go in the sewer pump station. Those are done, and they are on site, but we didn't put them in the pump station pending CLECO's service line that's coming to the pump station, because we didn't want them submerged in the pump station and be subject to wear and tear and vandalism. So those are the reasons why those items weren't done, but the majority of the work that is on that list, water and sewer, has been substantially completed. And the street is complete, and there is access to each parcel. If you would like, I would come forward and show you how. Yes, sir.
Okay, Jay, you're gonna have to educate me, I'm not sure.
Sure says, is this it more than this?
So this is parcel one, this is a giant
Right.
parcel right here, so it has access to the road.
Well, I understand, but is this it? Is this it?
Yes, that's it.
And that's it?
That's it. And
So
each
who's gonna
parcel-
build the road to this parcel?
once-
Private drive.
Yeah, the subdivision is
This is
five.
parcel one.
Right.
And
That's-
parcel
so
two
parcel
meanders over here.
Right, I
to get
see that,
access.
I see
It's here,
that.
Parcel 3, 4, and 5, so they all have access to the road as constructed right now. And they've got, there's one sewer service and water service to each of the lots right now.
All of this is parcel one.
Yes, the whole, yeah, the whole
Parcel two.
parcel. So they each do connect into the road. They have
No,
access to.
I saw that, thank you.
Technically, they did.
These are commercial parcels. These are not lots for sale type of thing. These are large commercial parcels.
Commissioner Richard?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. LaSalle, I understand the access. I see what you're doing here, and I don't have a problem with it. I think the issue at hand was there were 29 that I'm hearing from fellow commissioners, that there are 29 items on this list. And typically, when there's 29 items on the list, many of which may have already been completed, the petitioner comments on whether or not each item has been completed or not completed, for the record. And maybe that's what's throwing some of my commissioners off. Are you familiar with this?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Familiar with it.
Can you tell us whether this has been, any of these items have been completed or not?
Yes,
Or
the-
which ones are not completed?
What's not completed is the sewer pumps the pump station is complete. The sewer pump station is complete. The pumps have been purchased and they're on site. They just haven't been installed in the pump station because we're waiting for CLECO to put their service line in. The access road to the wastewater treatment plant is not complete. Recently, CLECO cleared the right-of-way that runs east to west across the property line. It's about a 300-foot right-of-way, and has created somewhat of a bog, and so we couldn't construct the access road over that particular area, which is the access to the wastewater treatment plant. And also, we couldn't complete the water line that goes to serve the treatment plant. And there's also a wastewater discharge line that discharges out of the plant into the drainage ditch. Back to the items that was, excuse me, I mentioned along the roadway, the shoulder, the 2-foot shoulder along the edge of the roadway. This was originally designed as a paved roadway with roadside ditches and a 2-foot shoulder. And the reason why those aren't completed is because we immediately after this acceptance are coming back, and it's all shown on the plat, going to actually close those ditches with culverts. There's a design pending on that, and put curb and gutter, so there's no ditches. And so to build a shoulder and go tear it up after would be not a cost-effective approach. And so we're willing to expend this additional expense at this time to go put the subsurface drainage and concrete curb and gutter as over and above what was previously approved on the original plan.
Okay, so you have some additional plans that have not yet come before us, or not yet come before planning?
Over and additional
above
improvements over and above what
Right.
was required of the parish.
All right, of these 29 items, do you commit to have these items all completed prior to the signing of any plats?
Yes.
Yep. No? Yes?
No, that's what the performance obligation
Okay.
was,
Oh, signing of the plats? No.
forth.
So,
That's-
we
that's
can put
what
up
they
a
were
letter of
proposing.
credit to ensure that will occur.
And this has been done on a handful of other commercial subdivisions in the past.
Understood. Thank you.
Commissioner Davis.
Yes, Mr. LaSalle. Are any of the parcels sold?
No, sir.
So just looking at this plat here, if I were to purchase, if I was somebody interested in buying parcel one, let's say, which is the largest parcel out there, I could be able to drive down Wadsworth Parkway, and then what?
And get to that parcel.
Okay, but how if there's no road going through?
There is a roadway.
So you're saying that this map that we were given, there's a road coming from here all the way through parcel one?
No, sir. No, sir. There's a road to the parcel one. You have access to the parcel.
Okay, so you have access to the parcel. Who is responsible for building the road maybe to go through parcel one?
Let me see if I can give you an example. For example, many years ago, I did Lakeview Regional Hospital, which was one parcel. And there's a series of roads that the hospital built to access their property. So that's the type of development that will occur on these large parcels.
Okay, so this is gonna be a public road, and then there'll be private roads after it.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Lauren.
Yes, sir. I have a question for legal counsel, please. If we were to deny this tonight, the gentleman and his organization has a lot of money invested in this. Would they have to go back and start from scratch because it has been denied?
They have the right to appeal as the developer at a final subdivision approval. They're the only person who has that right to appeal to the council.
Okay, but all I'm saying is if it were denied, period, would they have to go back and start the whole process over?
No, sir, unless he appeals it to the council and the council denies it as well, then yes, he would have to start all over from square one, yes.
That's my point. That was my question.
Yeah.
If it was totally denied, they'd have to go back.
If the council does not overturn a denial from
Okay.
from the commission, that's correct, yes.
But I would also add, Mr. Lauren, to Mr. Keller's comment that, of course, what the commission is considering right now is final subdivision and the completion of all infrastructure related to that required to get final subdivision approval. You know, I would suggest that there doesn't seem to be any comment up to this point that there are any flaws with what has been proposed for final subdivision approval. What the comments have been up to this point is that there are some items that have not yet been completed that are typically completed prior to subdivision approval. But then, as Mr. Watson has stated, you know, there are instances where approval is granted subject to, among other things, a performance obligation being placed on the approval to assure that the final work is completed.
Okay, well, it gets me back to my point. An alternative would be, would it be of any help to postpone this for a period of time and let you get further along in your process? That way you don't have to go through the appeals and you don't have to go through all this.
Well, we're here today saying we're pretty well along and we're willing to pull up a letter and credit to guarantee that we're going to complete it. All in accordance with the requirements of the parish in the parish's process. We're adhering to a process that the parish has approved in previous cases.
Commissioner Matthews.
Look, I don't think that they would have to go back to tentative and start over. I think what they would have to do if we deny it and the council denies it is come back again with an attempt at a final with all of the items or substantially all of the items completed. I saw Ron look forward. I mean,
Yeah.
do you disagree with that?
Oh, I mean, I guess legal might have something to say, but yes, it's my understanding that when a project is denied through any phase, tentative, preliminary, final, it's dead unless it's appealed and overturned. So, and I don't believe that's ever happened before, but it's my understanding that even if it's final approval, if it's denied, the case is dead and you have to refile. Now, Mike, did you think they can just come back and refile again for final again?
The purpose of final subdivision review and approval is to assure that all of the required infrastructure is in place and functioning, and so that plats can be signed to allow the developer to move forward with the project. That is why law only provides an opportunity for appeal of any action on final subdivision review to fall on the developer. A person who may be opposed for one reason or another with this project and may appear opposing the granting of final subdivision review does not have a legal right to appeal. And the reason is because approval of the subdivision has already been essentially granted during preliminary review and approval, and then tentative review and approval. Final subdivision review is only for the purpose of making sure, again, that all necessary infrastructure has been put into place. And that is essentially what the commission would be doing. I would suggest at this point that the commission denying final subdivision review for solely the reasons that all infrastructure has not been shown to be completed would be inappropriate at this time. I think that legally the appropriate thing to do, if the commission finds that the infrastructure in the final subdivision plans are shown to be consistent with what has been approved at the tentative review process, and the only thing that remains is completion of the installation of that infrastructure, then again, denial, I would recommend to this commission, would be inappropriate, and the commission should instead consider postponement of its approval, or do as it has done in some circumstances, make the approval subject to completion of the infrastructure, or what staff comments have stated in regards to the requirement of a performance obligation to assure that the infrastructure is completed.
I believe I still have the floor. To not be able to, at this point, deny approval of the final leaves us with the position, if a developer comes in and asks for final, and we've had them come in and ask for a preliminary and a final at the same time, and everything has been there and complete. But if not, then why are we here? If we can't deny approval of a final because there's no infrastructure, and that could be. We're just leaving it to the staff to approve it. Why are we even here bothering? I don't see why we can't tell the developer we're not going to approve your final because there is a huge amount of infrastructure left to be put in, or all of the infrastructure left to be put in. If the only thing we can legally do is postpone it and let them come back when they have their infrastructure, maybe that's what we have to do rather than deny. If the commission agrees that we have to do it that way because our legal counsel says that's the correct way to do it. I would change my motion to postpone this till next month.
Commissioner Matthews makes a motion to postpone until next month. Counsel?
And not to belabor the point, Mr. Matthews, and your point is very well taken, and I didn't make it clear enough in my comment earlier, but I was merely trying to opine that it would be appropriate for the commission to deny planning final subdivision approval if it is shown that there is some inconsistency in the final subdivision plat that you have been provided in which to approve with what had been previously approved at tentative. Essentially, if it doesn't show that if the final plat doesn't show that the developer did what it said it was going to do, subject to the approval that it received in tentative, then that may be grounds for denial of the final subdivision review or approval. I'm just also suggesting, I'm not saying that there is a legal mandate, but I am recommending that if the only reason the commission is considering not approving this subdivision is because it hasn't been shown by the developer that he has completed all of the infrastructure installs that he's required to do, then a more appropriate action on this for this commission to do, if it's not inclined to approve it, subject to staff comments, is to postpone the matter.
You brought up an interesting point that if what they didn't do.
Commissioner Matthews, the question was stated. I'm going to move on to other commissioners. You've had the floor. So I am now going to move on. It's not for you and council to debate. Commissioner Richard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I feel differently. I feel this is a wonderful project. I feel like it's something that's needed in the parish. The problem we're having here is that some of the items are not complete. Some of them are complete on this list. But we certainly have within our authority to approve this subject to these items being completed and a performance obligation. It might not be quite as clear. I think some of it was there was some concern about roadways, but I think after further review, you see what they're trying to accomplish here. This is a commercial tract, and we're ready to put it into commerce at a location that would be helpful for this parish. We have a motion and a second, I believe, or have those been amended?
No, we have a motion. We have a motion to postpone by Commissioner Matthews.
Okay, well then I'll save a motion to approve for later.
Commissioner Randolph.
There is,
Just as a point of clarification, Commissioner Matthews made a motion to postpone, but I did not hear a second.
No.
Okay, there would.
Never asked for a second. There was discussion going on, and there was not an appropriate time to have a second. There was other discussion going on. Mr. Lowen, I think, was having discussion on that at the time. Okay? If you're looking for a second for Mr. Matthews' motion, I will make the second.
So we have a second to the motion to postpone by Commissioner Dougherty. Commissioner Lauren?
Just by way of explanation, I agree with Mr. Richard. It's a good project. From what we've seen so far through preliminary and tentative, it's well thought out. It's just not to the point where the structure has been built. And if you look at the most expedient way to handle it, if it's denied, if we were to take the route of denial, then you would have to go through the appeal process. It'd be a lot quicker to postpone it for 30 days, get a little bit further along with what you've got to do, and come back with definitive answers about that checklist. and then we can approve it. And I think it would be a lot faster to do it that way.
Can I respond, Mr. Chairman?
Not yet. Commissioner Drum, excuse me.
Sir, I have a question. I have a question, sir. You've completed what is necessary to get in here and then disperse the people to the different plots. Is that correct? Yes, sir. Okay. Now, to me, it would be logical and that we don't know who's going to purchase the plots. We don't know what they're going to put in there. So we don't know what kind of infrastructure they're going to need. Right now, you've completed what you need to get them in there, and then they have to decide what they need when they get to that spot. You might have an industrial hospital, you might have a hospital, you might have somebody who manufactures stuff who needs another particular type of storage system or environmental control system. So basically what I see is you've done what you needed to do. Now it depends on who comes in as to what they need that needs to be put in. That's correct, sir. It's not, I hate to keep going back to Lakeview Regional Hospital, but the same thing occurred there. They needed additional water storage for fire protection. So they had to put additional tankage and pumps in to satisfy that requirement. And the same thing occurred with internal water lines and sewer lines within their facility. But the basic facilities were there to their property to extend and to accommodate the need of that parcel at the time. The other thing that occurs here, we are trying to make this something that'll look like North Park, for lack of a better way to say it. And when we designed that originally many years ago as a residential community with open ditches, that's what's been approved. That's what has come forward. You follow me? And the reason why some of these improvements have not been done, like the drainage ditch, the shoulders, is because we want to spend more money to make it look nice, as opposed to going to do these and come right back and have to tear it up. And that typical section of what we plan to do in the future is on the plat that is here before you. And we feel we have followed the process that has been approved by this body before to get to this point, and I ask you to consider that accordingly. And I will say one of the owners is the ASB Fund, which is a nonprofit that gives thousands of dollars back to the parish, to the Recreation District, to the Economic Development Foundation, as it relates to the profit that they do make on this project. So there's a lot of things that really don't surface here in this discussion.
Commissioner Matthews.
Been several comments about this being a good project, and I don't think anybody has said anything other than that. It is a good project, and the ASB Foundation is a very philanthropic, remarkable organization, and do a lot of good work. But the point is, not that we're concerned with what a particular tenant would want to put into their parcel if they buy it, but the things that the parish has said are required now and have not been done. That's the problem. The roadway, while it does touch all the parcels, it doesn't provide access into the parcels. And maybe it doesn't at this point in time need that.
Right.
But there are at least 29 items on here that have not been adequately addressed. Our staff says they're not there. We don't have any proof that they are there. Also, what I was going to say before is that one of the concerns is this project, what was approved by us in tentative and preliminary. That's been so long ago, and this project has changed so many times. I don't know what was done in tentative and preliminary as it pertains to this particular project. Staff, was this exactly what they had provided to us in tentative and preliminary for this project?
The tentative and preliminaries were a different plan than this. I think they went back for an amendment to their PUD that was approved through zoning. and that's what they're going with now.
That was recently done, the PUD amendment.
Okay, so the tentative and preliminary for this project is different than what we're presented with at final. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yes.
I'm not, I don't.
Yes, and because they didn't have to come back was because they greatly reduced the number of lots outstanding. The original, I think, proposal was, what, 900 lots or something? Or
327.
Yeah. So, yeah,
Down
so
to
they
5.
reduced it down to 5, so yes.
Well, I understand that, but, you know, one of the comments was that if they provided the same project at final as they did in tentative and preliminary, then we ought to approve it. Well, they didn't.
Commissioner Davis.
Yes, one last statement. From just looking at the plat here, obviously, you do have access to the rest of the lots, that's fine. But for some of us here who are involved in infrastructure and make sure people can get around, it looks like you have access to future infrastructure. And that's where some of us are having a little problem, especially with the fact where you have all these things that have to get done. Because I've never seen them listed before in a list. Usually we have a full documentation that under each item, we have an explanation about what needs to be done. So I will have to agree with these gentlemen to postpone it.
Any further comments from the commission? If not, we have a motion by Commissioner Matthews to postpone until next month and a second by Commissioner Dougherty. Please vote. I gotta vote with the affirmative. The motion to postpone carries. Proposed amendments to ordinance 499. Need a motion to return to the agenda. Commissioner Matthews.
I move to return the sign ordinance, I forget the number, what is it? Mr. Chairman?
It's ordinance 499, but it's an amendment to ordinance
499, the amendment to ordinance 499 for the sign, universal sign ordinance. I move to bring it back next month.
So moved. Second by Commissioner Dougherty. Any further comment? Please vote on a motion to return to the agenda, the amendment to ordinance 499. Motion carries. Is there any old business to come before the commission? Any new business?
One item possibly of new business, something was brought up at the last council meeting, that the council meetings have enhanced security, and the question was brought up that did the Planning and Zoning Commission, why did the Planning and Zoning Commission, and I guess even the Board of Adjustments, not have that enhanced security, since there are often people that leave here very upset. So I guess it's a question, is that something that the commission wants the parish to look at to provide that enhanced security at the Planning and Zoning meetings?
Any commissioners wish to comment? Commissioner Dougherty?
Yes, I think that we should have enhanced security. If nothing else, at least have one deputy to stand by, so if we have someone or a group that decides to get out of hand and requires police action, they're here and can get other deputies moving in this direction.
Mr. Chairman, do you think it would be appropriate to have a committee of the commission to look at that and make a recommendation to the commission?
I think that is a good idea, Commissioner Matthews. Would their commissioners care to serve on such a committee, putting forth a recommendation?
I would.
Commissioner Matthews?
Yeah, I'll,
Commissioner
just
Dougherty?
have to work it into my schedule.
Mr. Randolph?
Commissioner Randolph? Any other commissioners wish to do that? Commissioner Davis?
We have a comment in the back?
Jesse for BOA, for Board of Adjustments. He's saying that he would be on the committee.
I would appoint a commission with Commissioner Matthews facilitating to look at the concerns and issues relative to providing added security for the Planning and Zoning Commission meetings.
I think we have a member of the Board of Adjustments that would like to be on the committee also as a, I don't know if we can put him on our committee.
You're welcome to attend.
Yeah.
But a voting member of the commission's committee, you can't be, but you're welcome to attend and provide input. Okay. Commissioner Dougherty, you have a further comment?
Yes, on the follow-up of the subdivision finals where staff has not had a chance to review the plans and everything, and they're going to do that where we voted to approve, subject to their approval and so forth. I'd like to see something come back from staff that they had reviewed these and these items were taken care of sufficiently to merit the final approval that we gave.
Confirmation of completion.
Right.
Staff, are you able to identify that the action items have been, or the incomplete items have been completed?
I honestly, I don't know how we would, how that would logistically happen. We have all of, the subdivisions get put on your agenda every month and we have a subdivision meeting, but they come through at different times when would you want the?
Well, don't you give us, not us, the chairman, the plat to sign?
Yes, when the plats come through to be signed, there's a final would you like a copy of the final subdivision checklist?
I don't know, I mean, at some point,
approved?
you're saying that all these things
Well-
have been completed because that's when you give the chairman the plat to be
Yeah,
signed.
no, we definitely
Right.
make sure all the items are completed, but they happen randomly at different.
Right. At which
it may
time,
take
at which time
another-
staff notes that, they have been completed
Right.
and there's further signatures on it. Chair is typically the last to execute relative to it. But again, that continues to bring back the question that I think causes pause of the entire commission, and that is the debate. We can approve subject to final completion, but not long ago, the commission stated very clearly we wanted completion, that authority wanted to retain fully within the commission, and things improved. Frankly, I was very disappointed to see the list that was put forth in front of us once again, and I think the finals are at risk, whether or not we ever test the denial component. But I can assure you that there will be plenty of postponements because the commission takes it seriously that they be completed. It's also hard to understand that the millions of dollars that go into some of these large ones, the time periods, that the day before, the day of, they advise, oh, we're now complete. I have that very difficult to understand and very difficult to accept as a commissioner. They should be complete prior to coming in front of the commission.
And I think the staff would love to have all the
We
subdivisions
thought we were
complete.
there. Until I saw these three,
Right.
I believed we were there.
And it's unfair to you guys, for you guys to sit there and recite all the things that aren't done, and then they get up there and say, oh, they are done because we submitted it today and you haven't had a chance to look at it. And we're, like I said before, there are some people, I know Paul, I would be shocked that Paul would risk his reputation to have it not be done. But there are other people we don't really know, and they come up there and say, it's all done. Next week, you guys take a look at it and go, well, wait a minute, it's not all done. Then where are we? So it's not fair to you all, and it's not fair to us to have those things allegedly completed and allegedly given to you sometime today, and you have no chance to even verify that you even have anything. You don't even know whether the plans were actually given to you.
We agree.
Okay. Commissioner Dougherty.
I believe that's pretty well covered. And just a simple, I know that they don't go to the chairman until everything's been completed. And we're looking at, what, 2 tonight?
3.
That were approved, subject to certain things happening.
2.
Okay, well, I can pretty much assure you that those developers are going to get off their rear ends and get that stuff done, and Dave will have that probably within 30 days to sign.
I don't know. I can't, I don't, kn- they're not my projects. We get them when.
But it was said tonight.
Right.
Okay.
I would venture to say.
Within 30
just,
days, I don't know.
You know,
I couldn't say.
in closing, and I'll go to Commissioner Randolph too, but I think you can see the frustration of the commission and the concern. I mean, these are public documents. All right, we're a public body. If I were in the public, I'd say I'd like to see it all before it goes in front of the commission, to make sure the commission is actually fulfilling their public obligation. I think we'd be hard pressed to show it. Commissioner Randolph.
Yes, sir. As I can appreciate it, being on this commission, I've learned that there's a thing called, that we referred to a number of times tonight, performance obligation. Maybe it might be in the best interest of the commission for the final review to have that performance obligation, then have the final, then vote on it. And I know that's difficult too, but
Well, but if you had the performance obligation means that the work has not been completed, and y'all are looking to have the work be completed. So y'all, it's my understanding that you don't want to see a performance obligation.
Well, it's not, I don't think in terms for that, but when you see punch lists that are so long, and more importantly, it's done the day of.
Right.
You know, these should be substantially completed. I think that's the concern, and this will be a discussion we'll have. But to be substantially completed, final.
Well, maybe
I
I
don't
used
know
the
that there's
wrong, maybe I
anything-
used the wrong form instead of performance obligation.
Mm-hmm.
I understand that that's what we're requiring the petitioner to have complete in a time, in a designated time. But being that we've had so many of these cases to come in front of us, what these things, list of things to do, and some of them, like you said, are like the day before, the day of, or like this one tonight was as of November 13th. Maybe it's just best for us to get something when it is brought before the commission. When we know that there's some things outstanding, maybe it'd be the best thing for us to just postpone all those until it's done.
And that is an option of the commission.
And I know
Okay.
that's cutting down on our growth potential, but we're going back and forth on something here that we've done in the past, and now it's the time for us to decide how we're gonna handle it in the future.
I bet you it would take 3 or 4 times.
That's right.
Before.
The message would be clear.
I'll bet
Commissioner-
Wadsworth
Commi-
comes back
excuse me.
to us with a whole different attitude.
Commissioner Richard.
My point, I don't disagree in a lot of things you're saying. We'd love to, in an ideal world, have everything everything done, and if final really is final. There are a couple of things that have to be considered, and I don't know these timelines, but maybe planning can tell us. There are deadlines by which they have to put things up to get on an agenda. So they're anticipating something getting done. It might be 45 days out, and something doesn't happen. So now you're talking about, well, you better not get on this agenda. It's really 60 or 90 days out. And quite frankly, on deals this size, that's big money to these developers. So we have to be cognizant of, if our own rules and regulations and the timelines here, they're anticipating getting it done so that it can all come together at one time, and sometimes they fall short. Okay, we can say, we're not taking anybody falling short. But I have a problem with the comment is, well, Paul's a good guy, and we know he's a man of his word, so he's going to get the job done. We either have to do it for everybody or nobody, because and look, I like Paul. I do agree that he's a man of his word, but my point is you can't let some slide and others not. It's got to be one rule that we either hard and fast on, And we need to take a look at the timelines from when they have to put something in to get on the agenda and when they actually come before us. Because if that timeline is too long or there's not enough time and we cause a 30, 60, 90-day delay in a project, we need to look at that. That's all I have to say.
And I would add too, when a developer submits for any phase of a subdivision, they submit their plans to development, to engineering, we distribute the plans and we review them. At the time that they apply for final or for preliminary or whatever phase they're applying for, we haven't yet reviewed the plans. There's no way for staff to know if there's gonna be no comments, one comment, or the comments are gonna go out to quadruple F, you know? There's just no way for us to know. So there's no way for staff to limit the number of comments that we get. You know, really the only way that this is probably gonna get resolved is if the commission decides that we're not going to approve any final or preliminary or whatever it may be, if there's a punch list items, whether they're insignificant or whether they're just menial and they're not actually anything that needs to be corrected in the field, but just minor adjustments to the plat need to be made. There's no way staff can know that in advance of reviewing the plans. So unless the planning commission takes it upon themselves to say we're going to table everything that's not totally complete, once you do that for a month or 2 months, the developers, they're the ones that know what their subdivision looks like when they submit it for our review. And it's just going to take them getting the message that y'all want to send to be able to get the kind of results that we want to have here at the meeting.
I think what we'll.
Commissioner Dougherty.
Yes, I think, you know, Jay, we had some discussion one other time, very similar to this. And if it's things like blue reflective markers, even signage going into a subdivision, sometimes to keep our good little children from stealing some of the signs and so forth, we didn't require that, okay, in order to do the final on it. And as long as it was I'm not gonna say non-important, but
Minor.
something minor, that's right, minor.
Ministerial.
item, we did not have a problem with it, but the major ones, yeah, we've got a problem with it.
And that's just where it becomes a slippery slope, and
Right.
you know, occasionally you have some that are maybe mid-minor, or, you know, it's a slippery slope, and
Subject to our interpretation.
it's subject to your interpretation.
Commissioner Matthews, one final comment.
The ministerial things that, like, we need to put something on the plat, change a note, those aren't things that deal with, is the subdivision actually complete? And the developer knows what those are and knows what things, should know, the type of things we're gonna look for. And if they don't, then after a few times of us saying, you've got no roadway in, okay, we're not gonna approve it. You have a note that needs to be put on the plat, we're gonna approve that. I think it will come across to them, and they're the ones that have to make that decision, not you all.
Right.
Have a motion to adjourn? Thank you.